Welcome into another edition of the GigEm247 Sports Podcast, a postseason baseball edition of the podcast. And no better person to have here than Sam Smith, our baseball aficionado, here to break it all down as Texas A&M gets ready to host the regional. The number 3 seed, the highest seed in program history, comes with basically the path to Omaha goes through College Station for A&M. And so we're going to get into all that, a very intriguing regional for A&M, get Grambling, Louisiana, and Texas. We're going to break that region. Sam, first off, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Well, it's great to be with you. You know, this is always my favorite time of the year, so I feel like it's Christmas.
It's go time, right? It's like it's A&M's had a tough month. You know, they've had to go on the road a couple times, had a couple tough series at Ole Miss and LSU, and then a tough run through the SEC tournament, losing both games. But I think starting there, listening to Ryan Prager, listening to Jace LaVillette, and listening to Jim Schlossnagle, it sounds like that break might have actually been a blessing in disguise for this team to just get a chance to kind of reset and refresh and recharge the batteries and get ready to go on Friday. They'll kick off on Friday at noon Central against Grambling. What do you think that break did for them and where this team is right now?
Well, truthfully, you can always look at it 17 different ways. Momentum is great, but rest is great too. We talk about in our preview at the beginning of the year, we talk about how it's, developing the team and then preparing for the gauntlet and then really trying to make your way through the gauntlet and do as best you can. Well, A&M did all of that. If you think about it, I mean, sure, as they got towards the end of the year, LSU, kind of put a little bit of a number. Our offense sputtered, our defense made mistakes they haven't made in the past, and kind of carried that over to Ole Miss, went through that. But, to their credit, we came back home and won 2 or 3 from Arkansas with that pitching staff, which is the best pitching staff in the country. And I will talk about that in a little bit too, because everybody has this impression that if you don't have this elite pitching, you're going to have a really hard time going through the NCAA tournament. Well, yeah, you need good pitching. There's no question, but it's not that the only factor that you got to deal with. But in A&M's case, man, they rode at such a high level and they played such a high level. I mean, they won 6 straight series in a row in the SEC after, starting the season at Florida, and really could have won that series. I mean, they were in every ball game at Florida. So, I mean, they played hard and they played well. I mean, they didn't lose a single out-of-conference game the entire year, which is still pretty amazing. I don't care how hard the schedule is or whatever. It's hard to do that, especially when you're going with midweek starters, you're going with freshmen, you're going with guys that really haven't played. You're just trying to figure out what you got. And so, there's going to be some stumbling, and yet they stumbled enough and still were able to figure out a way to win those games. And so, to the credit of the coaching staff, I mean, Jim Schlossnagle is an outstanding coach, and he certainly has his eye on the postseason at all times. And so he can tell you whatever he wants to tell you in February, but I promise you his end goal was to try to position A&M to be in the best position possible as we enter the postseason. So as I mentioned on the board, yesterday when I kind of put a post out there, I mean, mission was accomplished. We did exactly what needed to be done in the regular season. But as they got to LSU, playing LSU at the box is never easy. Offense, really kind of didn't play up to the same level they'd been playing at. But we also made a bunch of really dumb mistakes on defense. I mean, we made a bunch of errors. And really, to be flat honest with you, when it's all said and done, free bases is what's going to kill you in the postseason. And it'll kill you in the SEC. It'll kill you in the postseason. So when I see people make comments about, well, I'm not sure if A&M has the pitching. Well, I can guarantee you A&M has the pitching. A&M certainly has the offense, and they have the potential on offense, and they certainly have the defense. The key thing is we've got to get the 17 to 23-year-old kids to play and play at that high level now that you've started in the postseason. And I like A&M's chances just as much as I do anyone else. But the key thing is that we've got to start playing like we were playing, before LSU. Now, to be able to do that at home is certainly an advantage. But I also think the huge advantage was really, to be honest with you, taking 3 straight days off. I mean, they took 3 days off where they did nothing. And if you talk to anybody on that team, whether it's the coaching staff, the players, whoever, they're all like, man, it was great. It was really great because the gauntlet is the gauntlet for a reason. And so you can say whatever you want to say. The Aggies finished 1 game out of winning the West, and they are the number 3 national seed. So they've been doing something right, regardless of the, stumbling there, a couple of series here and there. this team has done really well, and they needed a break. And so I actually think it was probably a blessing in disguise. I mean, I am so disappointed in the SEC tournament in general, and I want to explain what I mean by that. The SEC tournament is the finest collection of college baseball teams in the country, bar none. You can even include Omaha. The SEC tournament is the best. But because the way everything works out, the SEC tournament doesn't really mean jack squat to a team like A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, because you've pretty much already put the skins on the wall, and that's what you're going to need. So the teams that really care are the teams that really took off and really did what they did. I mean, LSU basically made the tournament because of the run that they made in Hoover, and they earned it. I mean, they certainly did a great job and did all that. Now, to Tennessee's credit, Tennessee figured out a way to continue their offense, kind of carry them, and they were able to hodgepodge it all together. We'll see what that means as we go now into the Knoxville Regional. Did they go too far? Did they not get a lot of rest? I don't know. Vitello is a good coach. We'll see what they did. But from an A&M perspective, I think A&M needed a break, and I would say the same thing about Arkansas. I think Arkansas was exhausted. I mean, they've got outstanding pitching in Arkansas, but, man, I got to tell you, their offense isn't anything spectacular. I mean, they played okay against us, but, I mean, at the end of the day, the pitching is kind of what carried them. But if you can't score runs, you're not going very far in the tournament. And so they talk great about, how great Hagen Smith is, and I think the world of Hagen. I mean, Hagen's from my hometown here in East Texas. So we've known Hagen for a long time. I'm very excited for him. Still disappointed he went to Arkansas instead of A&M. But at the same time, I mean, he's a great player, and he's been exceptional. But you're not going to just be able to ride Hagen Smith all the way to winning the national championship. You need guys around him. So it's not any one particular thing. And so for A&M to get the rest and then kind of be kind of fired up and kind of have that fire relit and everything and ready to rock and roll, these guys are ready. I mean, they're ready to play. Truthfully, I think we're going to come out and beat the heck out of Grambling. I really do. I think I don't even know who we're pitching at. It's still kind of yet to be determined. But I think these guys are going to be fired up and ready to play. I think we're going to make the mental errors on the bases that we were making at LSU and Ole Miss and all that? No, I don't think we will. I think we'll be back to the fundamentals and making sure we're making the right plays and doing what we need to do. But if anything, if anybody takes away anything about whether you're going to be successful in college baseball in the postseason, it's one key thing, and that is free bases. You cannot walk players. You cannot give up errors and put people on the base. That puts way too much pressure on your pitching, puts way too much pressure on your defense, and that's how you hurt yourself. Now, on the opposite side of that, if you get guys on base, you need to get them across the plate. And so, the offense needs to step it up. And when, the Chestnuts and the Sorrells get on base, we need Grahovac and Lavette and Montgomery to do what they've been doing most of the year, and that is draw those suckers in. That's the way it's set up. And that hadn't been happening for the last, probably month or so. The 1, 2, and 3 have struggled a little bit. They haven't been horrible, but they haven't been at the level they were before LSU. I mean, we were, rocking and rolling. I mean, we were by far the best team in the country at that time. We need to get back to that. If we get back to that, we can beat anybody. But that is the key, is to reset, get your mind right. There have been a lot of questions on the board, and we'll talk about this as we go through. But there's a lot of reasons for this. But the truth of the matter is you play 50-something games, and you play at a very high level, and you're playing against elite competition. And truthfully, most of the teams that do really well and go through that with only a few wins or only a few losses have usually not had a lot of success. I mean, the number one team in the country going into the tournament hadn't won since '99. So there's a reason for that. So it all has to come together at the right time. It could be a blessing in disguise that they struggled a little bit, and they have had that. I mean, we still won 2 or 3 from Arkansas and, won that series and, secured the number 3 seed and all that. And so there's a lot to be said for the A&M team, but there's no excuses there now. It's, you've kind of stumbled, you've had tremendous success, but now it's time to play. And Jim Schlossnagle is made for this. I mean, he's built this team. In fact, I said on the board yesterday that, the A&M team has been prepared for an entire year at this point for this moment. It wasn't about, what was going on in February. It wasn't even starting the SEC season so much. It was doing the very best we could do in SEC, but be prepared for this moment. So this team going in 2024 is a better baseball team than what A&M had going into the 2022 NCAA tournament. And that team ended up doing pretty dang well. But it takes some breaks. It takes doing what you need to do. But if this team lives up to its talent level, they're as good as anybody they're going to be facing throughout the regionals, the super regionals, and certainly when they get to Omaha. But they got to do it now.
And you look at that, right? Like a guy like Gavin Grohovac, it's got to probably help hitting two home runs. Granted, they lost the game against Tennessee, but hits 2 home runs against Tennessee. That can get you kind of, again, feeling good heading into the NCAA tournament. And we kind of talked about it off air and before we started, and Jim Schlossnagle actually talked about this as well. Not playing programs in the SEC as you start to kind of move into the NCAA tournament, that's going to help as well, because you look at 4 of the top 8 seeds are all from the SEC, and that tells you just the depth and strength of this conference. You look throughout the rest of the league. I was listening to another video before we jumped on, and they were kind of talking about projections about how many SEC teams could make it to Omaha, and one said 4 and one said 6. And so you know what the number ends up being. You just look at the depth and talent in this conference, and A&M has played their best baseball at home. Only 3 losses all season at home.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty darn good. And so you look at how things set up well, right? And it's not necessarily an easy regional by any means, but wanted to get your take on this pitching staff, because obviously, as we mentioned, it doesn't all start there, but you still need good starting pitching. And for me, this A&M's well positioned on that front, just in terms of who they can throw out there and being able to at least get some length, which in the the past couple of years, we've kind of talked a lot about this pitching staff heading into regionals and super regionals, and do they have the pitching to get there? And it feels like they, obviously have a reliable Friday night starter to be able to turn to in Prager, but some options behind there they can turn to as well. Now they need to go out and throw the ball well, but what do you kind of see from this pitching staff and how A&M sets up, both as from a starting perspective and in the bullpen?
It's funny. The pitching is such a unique discussion, because you can get a guy that's really hot and he can dominate one night and you can still lose the series. I mean, it's just the way things are. So, I want to start by basically kind of going back to a Hagen Smith discussion. I mean, Hagen Smith is unbelievable, and he was unbelievable against A&M. And, oh, by the way, he still lost the game he pitched in. Now, it went 11 innings, but he did lose that game, and Arkansas lost the series. I point that out just because everybody's been talking about how great Arkansas's pitching staff has been all year, and they have been. They've been great. We were the 3 national seed. They were 5, right? So our pitching must be pretty good. Now, it may not be at the same level, but you combine pitching with offense and defense and all that, and A&M was better. For the most part. I mean, they won the SEC West, but I kind of laugh. There was somebody early on before we got into the SEC tournament. We're talking about what a failure it was because we didn't win the SEC, and so it really wasn't that great a season and all this. Well, the SEC is huge, and you don't play everybody, and we didn't have Missouri on our schedule, and a lot of the other teams did, and that was 3 games right there. Well, those 3 games made a difference, and when it's all said and done. But, you could pick and choose or whatever. I don't even care. And truthfully, I don't even think Schloss or any of those guys care either, because it was all about positioning for the NCAA tournament. And so A&M being a 3 seed answers all those questions. So anybody that had an issue and said, oh, my gosh, A&M is really not that good or whatever, well, they're the number 3 national seed, and they're that for a reason. So, good for them. But if you look at our pitching, Tennessee, Kentucky, A&M, their pitching is pretty similar, decent. They've all got good – some pretty solid starters, and they've got pretty good bullpens and all that. Arkansas at 5 has got certainly a better staff because they got an ace. I mean, they got a serious ace. I mean, we saw what he could do, and Ryan Prager matched him, pitch for pitch. And so that was awesome to see. But at the end of the day, it really kind of comes down to, do you have the arms to get you where you need to go? You want to stay in the winner's bracket. If you stay in the winner's bracket, you don't really punish your arms. You can actually, go through an entire regional and actually be in really great shape with your pitching for the supers. And actually, supers are much easier because you're playing 2 out of 3. So, the thing about it is you really need pitching depth just in case you happen to stumble and end up in the loser bracket. Because if you get in the loser's bracket, now all of a sudden your pitching is really taxed and so forth. So if you look at the season and how it progressed, that's exactly what Schlossnagle and Wiener have been doing the whole time, is trying to determine, okay, what do we have? What can we work with, and so forth. At the same time, trying to adjust to the SEC, because the SEC is looking at tendencies. They were starting to pick up some of our signals. In fact, that was the whole thing. Remember, for a few weeks there, was, were they picking up Tanner Jones, and was he basically giving away his pitches before he was pitching or whatever? Very possibly he was doing that, and somebody might have seen something, and all of a sudden everybody in the SEC knows about it and makes for a long couple of weeks. Well, you saw what we did. We kind of switched it out and moved Tanner Jones to the bullpen, just like we had done Lampkin earlier in the year, and did that. And we bring in Shane Sadeo, who basically was our setup guy or closer for most of the time. And look what he looked like. I mean, he looked phenomenal the last couple of years, and now he's actually our number 2 guy and pretty solid in that spot. Now, he's also a lefty with some wicked movement, and that's kind of what you need. But the reason I'm talking about it kind of this way is, yes, we have Ryan Prager, and Ryan Prager is what you see is what you get. He's a very smart, intelligent pitcher, can control all 4 of his pitches. He's not overpowering, but he can certainly place it. He knows how to pitch. He can pitch. He can throw any pitch at any time. He can keep the batters off balance. I mean, he is a smart kid who has learned well, and he continues to do extremely well. So he's awesome. So then you look at Sadeo. Well, Sadeo has come in, and he had a little bit of a kind of a couple of games where he didn't pitch quite as well, gave up big hit there, here and there and everything. But for the most part, he's thrown very well. Well, all of a sudden he comes in and starts pitching, and look what he's done. I mean, he's been fantastic. And I got to tell you, a left-hander with that kind of movement and so forth is just nasty. And it's really something you only see in a few teams here and there, other than in the SEC. So to have that guy as your number 2 guy coming out, I think is outstanding. But what I really love is the fact that we've got all these other arms that we've worked with and developed, and they've had some moderate success here and there, but they're all solid arms. I mean, you look at Tanner Jones. Tanner, was a starter for us for most of the year. Started, maybe he was, showing some pitches or whatever it may be. They moved him to the bullpen. He's come in. He's actually pitched, quite well, which is really what you need. You need guys to keep you in the game. Lampkin has kind of done the same thing. So now there's your lefty and righty in the pen, right? And so we can use them as a starter. May use them on Friday, may not. It just depends on who Schloss wants to go with based off of matchups. But we've also got a few other guys. I can tell you, Caden Wilson is going to get a lot of attention in the postseason. And I know a lot of the Aggies will say, well, we've only seen him a few times, and a couple times he got rocked. Well, yeah, he's a freshman, but he's got quality stuff. I don't know if you heard Hart and my brain just went blank, our guy from Omaha, Kyle Peterson. Kyle was just raving about Caden Wilson's arm when he came in and pitched. He's like, man, this kid can really throw it, and he can. He's got exceptional stuff. Wiener and Schloss and the whole staff have been just going nuts about him all year, but he's had moderate success. Well, I got to tell you, having that arm now coming into the postseason is awesome, because think about us in 2022, man. We were on fumes by the time we got and played Oklahoma the second time. Man, we didn't have anything left. And so to have a kid that's got this kind of potential, a lot of times these guys rise to the occasion. When the lights come on and you got serious stuff, you've been working hard and developing all year. You've learned from a couple of mistakes here and there and all that. I got a feeling Caden Wilson's going to be a superstar in the postseason. I really do feel that way. But then you've got other guys. You've got Weston Moss, who's looked fairly good for us too. Badmadev, who is basically a guy that we really thought we would count on earlier in the year because he's a big strike thrower. Didn't really look that great early on, but the last few times he's gone out and pitched, man, I mean, he's looked great. And so now you got another guy. You got a big righty that throws strikes. Well, Schloss, he doesn't want you to walk. I mean, he wants you to throw strikes, let the defense back you up. So we just keep checking these guys off. And, oh, by the way, I didn't even mention Cortez. And, I mean, Cortez, can do pretty much anything. I mean, the guy can go long for you. He could potentially start. I don't see us ever starting him just because why break the routine? He seems to do better coming in the game. So, to bring in 100 miles an hour and, mix it in with a Brock Perry and even a guy like Brad Rudis. I mean, Brad Rudis has totally reworked himself. I mean, I don't think people really truly grasp unless they've read a lot of the stuff that I've written. Brad Rudis was not going to make this team this year, and it was because they kind of had figured him out, and he was not getting people out. He was really, kind of struggling, and they sat down with him and said, man, we need to make some changes if you're going to be important for us in 24. And he did just that. He dropped the arm slot. He's kind of become that sidearm guy. And, man, he is more effective today than he was in 22. And remember, in 22, he was our bulldog, in the postseason. And so So you got Rudis with some experience and experience, doing that, and he's got that unique arm slot. So now you've got Rudis and Perry that can give you a different look, and you mix that in with Cortez, and all of a sudden these hitters are, their heads are spinning because like, well, what the heck? I mean, one second I've got a sidearm guy throwing, upper 80s, and the next thing I know, I've got 100 miles an hour coming in my head. So, it's kind of interesting to see. So if you really take a step back and not get caught up in the drama from the last few weeks or whatever it may be, you can kind of see the genius in Jim Schlossnagle and obviously Wiener as well. And Schloss is a pitching coach. I mean, that is his background. And so you got to give a lot of credit for the pitching, not only just to Wiener, but also to Schloss. He's very involved in that. But those two guys have done a really good job of developing the strength of this bullpen to be ready for a time such as this. And what I mean by that is we're only talking, he's sitting there today trying to figure out, okay, who are my 27 players? Well, if you go through the roster, and I did this earlier in the year to kind of show everybody before we started SEC play, it really kind of comes down to like 3 or 4 guys. And when you say 3 or 4 guys, okay, one of those spots is probably a utility guy because you need some. So as an example, our number one utility guy is obviously Kent, right? He can play every position in the infield. He's a good bat. He's got the bat going. In fact, truthfully, I mean, he could start at second or Chestnut could start at second. Chestnut's probably a little bit more of a threat on the bases, and so that's kind of where it's going. But there's no drop-off on defense at all, and truthfully, the bats are about the same. And so Kent's great. So you got Kent, but then, okay, now what do you do? Who are your other players? Well, we've got we've got a couple of guys. We've got Jet Johnson, who's kind of our 4th outfielder, who can actually pitch, by the way. We've only thrown him once, but he certainly can come in. And, oh, by the way, don't forget, you got Braden Montgomery out there who's only pitched a couple of times, but be surprised if you don't see that righty come in and throw a few pitches. I mean, can you imagine him coming in against Grambling and throwing, 100 miles an hour at him or whatever it may be? He didn't have to be perfect, and he intimidate the heck out of Grambling. So don't be surprised if you see that. And you can see the same thing with Jet Johnson. So now you got a field player that can pitch. Now, Benderup is the same way. I mean, he was a pitcher for us until this year. He kind of focused on the field, but he could certainly come in and grab some innings for you too. So there's a lot of strategy involved, but what it really comes down to are, okay, who are those 3 or 4 arms that we need to go with? Well, if you look back and look at kind of how the way the season progressed, Slosh rode with some guys during some pretty questionable times. Caden Wilson gave up a couple of big hits, but he kept him in there, kept working with him and everything. And if you've noticed, he's getting better and better and better. Well, he was doing that because now we got Caden Wilson and we've got, the Brock Perrys, we got all these guys. So that's why I say when it's all said and done, it's a tough decision who he's going to leave on the bench. Now, I did want to mention, I mentioned on the board, because we're the host team, we can dress everybody out. So our entire team is going to be dressed out and sitting on that bench, which I think is really cool. And that's kind of a privilege of the hosts, but only 27 can play. So there's an awful lot of guys that have contributed this year and are going to contribute a lot moving forward that are not going to be on that 27-man roster. Now, they could end up going on the roster for the Supers because of matchups or injuries or whatever it may be. But that is the big decision that Schloss is making. But as I went through and started looking at the potential bullpen itself, I'm feeling pretty good about what they have to work with. I mean, we've got some solid guys that can start, but we've also got some solid guys that can give us innings. And when you think about the SEC, I mean, they average, 4.5 innings is the average for a starter. Well, in the regionals, we're not playing against the SEC the whole time. So I think we got plenty of arm talent to be able to handle the regional, plenty of arm talent to handle a super. The real question is do we have that arm talent if we got to Omaha? And I would tell you that looking at this compared to where we've been before, we're as in as good a shape as we have ever been, top to bottom in that bullpen, to go to Omaha. Now, it's not the best starting rotation we've ever had. I mean, my gosh, we had the best starting rotation in Omaha back in 2011 and went 0-2 and we're done. And both of those guys are still pitching in the majors, and I'm still ticked off about the South Carolina game, but it is what it is. So anyway, I think everybody should be encouraged that, don't worry about our pitching. Our pitching is going to be there. Is it perfect? No. Is it as good as everybody else? Yes. Probably as good as most in the country with the exception of a couple. But the other side of is what else do you have? And you put it all together as far as a full team, there's not anybody any better than A&M when they're hitting on all cylinders.
No doubt. Now it's just the time they have to go do it. if you're listening to us on audio, we're gonna take a quick break. If you're with us on video, hang with us. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Sam Smith. We're gonna dive into that regional a little bit. Obviously, Texas A&M opens up against Grambling on Friday afternoon. Opted to go with the first game of the day, and then following them will be Texas and Louisiana. What do you make of this regional? What do you make of the matchups? Obviously, when Sloss spoke on Monday, still had more to kind of go back and look at. But what do you kind of make of this regional and how it matches up for A&M?
Well, I think that A&M got exactly what they deserve from a national seed perspective. I do think they were the 3 seed. In fact, that's what I had told everybody before it was announced, that I thought they deserved the 3. You know, the committee, you never know what the committee's going to do. I knew that they were going to put a token ACC team in there somewhere. Would they do it before A&M or after A&M? In this particular case, they did it after A&M. Truthfully, they should be back one more. I think Arkansas is probably a better team than North Carolina, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, though, when the committee starts messing around, you can throw everything out the window. I still think, and I've heard Kyle Peterson say this the other day, I think they should seed them 1 through 64 and then just match it up and go. That's the way they should do it. They're not going to do that, and they're certainly not doing it right now. So regardless of whether A&M was the 1 seed, the 8 seed, whatever it meant, anywhere in between, we were going to get Texas. It was just going to happen. It was just a question of, how are they going to make it work? I heard some of the Texas people complaining that they should have been a 2 seed. Well, good luck to that. I honestly think they should have been a 4 seed. They were lucky to get in the tournament. They made a nice little run, but they went 0-2 in their own tournament and got kicked out. So they're very lucky to be wherever they're going to be. And I thought they'd get in, but to complain that whether you're a 2 or a 3, you should be happy you're a 3 instead of a 4. But to the committee's credit, at least they made Texas the 3 seed so that A&M didn't have to play them the very first game, and I appreciate that a little bit. But Grambling is an interesting
something.
Oh yeah, and truthfully, it wouldn't surprise me if they do it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the whole committee thing because I just think it's ridiculous when you start getting in there. I mean, there were a couple of teams that didn't get in, and I'm certainly not. I mean, I could care. I mean, the fact that TCU's home. I mean, I guess I chuckle a little bit, but I mean, TCU got screwed. They should be in the tournament, but it is what it is. But the one I really feel bad for is Lamar. Lamar should be in that tournament. I don't understand why they're not in the tournament. They actually had as many wins as A&M. Now, sure, they didn't play in the SEC and all that, but Lamar's pitching was outstanding, and they really played really well. They swept Oklahoma at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is a regional host. So, I mean, this is a team that really deserved to be there. And so for them not to get there, they have every right to complain. But, there's a lot of teams that are really upset. I saw the College of Charleston coach, and, I don't blame him a bit, man, to go 44-14 and you don't even get in the tournament. He even said, when I was head coach at South Carolina, I got fired because I was 13-17, and now I see 5 SEC teams get in at 13-17. So I mean, I get where he's coming from.
True.
At the same time, I don't care if you're 44 or whatever, you're still not as good as a 13-17 Florida. I'm sorry, but you're not. But anyway, I certainly get where he's coming from. But when you look at the regional itself, Grambling really kind of surprised the world even getting in. They were not even highly regarded going into the SWAC tournament in Atlanta, and yet they came out and they won. They've got a decent offense. They've got some kids. They've got quite a few kids that are batting over 300. They've got one kid that is on the mound that is kind of, I guess you might want to call him their A. They got 2 kids that can throw the ball. One, though, is kind of, he'll throw 200 pitches in some cases. They've used him big time, and he's been serviceable and so forth. And I guess that works in the SWAC. That will not work in College Station. So good luck to him on that. But then, they got a couple kids that, are decent pitchers. They have decent ERAs and so forth. But Grambling really has gotten where they're going because their offense got hot, and good for them. I think they're going to have a really difficult time against A&M. I mean, there's a totally different level. In fact, there's about 4 levels from where they were. So, can A&M go in and handle Grambling? Absolutely. But let's keep in mind, Prairie View A&M came in during the midweek and, really shocked A&M and nearly beat them. And so you got to be real careful to not, discount any team, because any team can beat anybody at any given time. That wind's blowing out, it's a hot day, and their bats get hot, and all of a sudden you're down 5-0. Things can happen. So A&M is not going to look past Grambling. At the same time, A&M is not going to throw Ryan Prager in game one. That's not going to happen. I saw somebody on the board ask me the question, well, do you think that's wise? Don't you think we ought to go with kind of our best? Well, I certainly get it. We don't want to lose game one. That is extremely important. You win game one. You don't want to get in the loser's bracket. And so that's important. But when you look at the quality of the opponent compared to the quality of the opponents later on, you'd much rather have Ryan Prager going in game two against a Louisiana or a Texas than you would going against Grambling. You don't want to waste those bullets there. And so I do think that you're going to see us go with, there's probably 3 or 4 guys that he's considering right now. In fact, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he sent Caden Wilson out. I really wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think Caden Wilson's stuff is going to intimidate the heck out of somebody like a Grambling or whatever. But my guess is it'll probably be Jones or it'll probably be Lampkin. Could potentially be Rudas, kind of like what we did in the SEC tournament.
Yep.
So there's a variety of guys. Weston Moss would be a serviceable guy to do that with as well. It's all based off the matchup, and it's also based off what you want to make sure you have in your bullpen as you get into Saturday, Sunday. And so Schloss is very good at this. He's an excellent coach in this regard. So that's how he's looking at it. He's looking at it based off the matchup. So at Grambling, you can expect decent offense. You leave something out over the middle of the plate, they're going to pound it. And they're going to hit the ball, and they're going to hit the ball hard. They're fairly quick. So if you get them on bases, you give them free bases, they could cause us all kinds of headaches. So you definitely don't want to do that. But I don't expect that to happen. But that's how Grambling would beat A&M is get the bats hot, get on base, work the counts, get on base. A&M make a few errors, and all of a sudden they put a lot of pressure and they score a couple of runs. Offense gets tight. Things like that could happen. Don't expect it, but I'm just saying that could happen. The Louisiana-Texas game is going to be outstanding. And, oh, by the way, I did want to mention this because people were all saying, well, how come, we've got Grambling at noon and we're going to be on ESPN Plus, and then, the Texas-Louisiana game is going to be on ESPN Network and all that. Well, I certainly get their take, but Schloss has always said this. He's always done it. Give him the early game on Friday because it gives him the most rest for Saturday. So you play at noon, you're done by 3 o'clock. And then you have until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock the next night before you play again. You get your full rest. If you play on Friday night and you lose, you come right back and you play again at, noon or 2 o'clock, whatever the time is. And so it's a real quick turnaround. It's really tough, especially when the weather's hot and all that. You don't expect that to happen, but you need to plan for it just in case. And then the winning team then gets to play, and so they get a little bit more rest, but not near as much rest as the team that played at 12. And so that's why Schloss selects doing that. He's always done that. That shouldn't surprise anybody. The networks, by the way, there are very few people are going to be sitting at home on Friday midday, other than the crazies like me and you and everybody else that are really into it, to watch that game against Grambling. And so that's the reason why they're putting Texas-Louisiana. Now, I got to tell you, Texas-Louisiana is going to be a great game. Louisiana is an outstanding team. In fact, the Raging Cajuns, really, truthfully, they kind of laid an egg in their conference tournament, or they probably would be even in a better spot than even facing the 3-seed regional. They probably would have been further down in a regional. They would have been a better spot for them. But they're excellent. They have outstanding pitching. They've got very good pitchers. I mean, they've got 1 through 3. They're decent. They throw the ball hard. They've got a very good closer. And so they're nothing to be laughed at. They've got a couple of really good bats and so forth. So they're a very talented team that certainly earned the 2 seed. Now, looking at Texas, everybody at A&M that remembers Texas and our midweek against them needs to forget about what we saw, because that was a midweek game. Yes, they ran out their most talented offense and all that, and A&M kind of put it on them. But we didn't face the best of the Texas team. It was a midweek game. Now, they also didn't face the best of A&M either, because we were throwing our midweek guys too. And so you got to kind of take that all with a kind of a grain of salt, because that now we're getting ready to see the best of the best on both sides of the teams. And so Texas is going to have their hands full. They're more talented than Louisiana, but they're not the better team of the two. Louisiana is the better team. They're playing more as a cohesive unit. Matt Deggs is a great coach. Those of you guys that remember Matt, Matt coached at A&M for quite a while with Rob Childress, had some personal issues that really sent him down a really difficult slope. to his credit, he's really gotten his life straight. He did a great job at Sam Houston, which got him the job at Louisiana, and he's done a great job there. And so Matt is an excellent coach, and they're well coached. They're a talented team, and they're going to be really good. And if Texas is going to have to really play hard to beat Louisiana. So don't in your mind think that, oh, A&M is going to play Texas Saturday night. It's very possible that A&M could be playing Louisiana on Saturday night. They really could. I mean, they would not surprise me in any way. And that's not downgrading the talent at Texas. It's just these are two very good teams. Someone on the board on my post yesterday made the comment that they didn't agree with me saying that this was a hard regional. Okay, well, the justification was to go out there and look at all the stats. And I certainly get that, and everybody can look at all the stats they want to, and that's fine. But I'm telling you right now that every regional in the NCAA tournament is tough. But when you have a regional where you're playing against one of your big rivals and you're playing against one of your better regional teams in Louisiana, it's a tough regional. It just is. And so don't discount these teams. I mean, A&M does not have in any way whatsoever a cakewalk by any means. And in fact, I think they're going to have to play really hard. Now, do I think they can win? Yes. A&M's the most talented team here. In fact, I think A&M's one of the most talented teams in the NCAA tournament. So they are, but they still have to do it on the field. And so whatever happens on Friday, I would expect A&M to play the winner of the Louisiana-Texas game. I do expect that. But I couldn't tell you right now who the favorite is in that game because I think they're both really, really good. Louisiana and Texas both kind of laid an egg in their conference tournaments. They both are kind of on their heels a little bit. So I'm not sure either one has the momentum there. But Texas had been playing really well, going into the tournament. They had to really play well just to get into the tournament. And so, maybe Texas had a little bit more momentum, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be a dogfight. And so that all being said, that moves into, okay, when A&M faces a Louisiana or a Texas, that is going to be significant because both of those teams have plenty of talent. As I said, Louisiana, I think, is playing a little bit better baseball, but it doesn't matter. Throw it all out. It's like, pick any time A&M has ever played Texas. I don't care which team is heavily favored or not. Half the time, the team that's the least favored is usually the team that wins. I mean, it's a rivalry. Rivalries are what they are. So there are a lot of kids that are playing on both sides, on all three of those teams that played against each other in high school. They've been recruiting the area. They played on select teams together. They played travel team, all-star teams. They all know each other. And so it's going to be a dogfight regardless of who those teams are. So I'm actually pretty excited about the regional. I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining to watch just because of all those different side stories and so forth. But at the end of the day, my hope is that A&M can win game one, win game two, be in the winner's bracket, and be going with Shane Sadeo on the hill Sunday night to win it. Now, if everybody understands how this works, the winners play Saturday night. So Friday you play the two games. The two winners play Saturday night. The two losers play Saturday during the day. So somebody gets eliminated on Saturday. And then the winner of that game will play the loser of that night game on Saturday on Sunday. And whoever wins that game would then play the winner of the Saturday night game on Sunday night. And then if they have to beat that team twice. So not only would they have to win Sunday night, they would have to also then win on Monday. So there's a distinct advantage if you're the winner in the winner's bracket. And so that's where we want A&M to be.
No doubt. You got to win two games basically on Sunday and then still have enough pitching to be able to get to Monday. Should A&M advance from this bracket, right? And should they advance from the regional? You look ahead to the super regional. What do you think about the Santa Barbara matchup and that super regional and potentially who could come out of that bracket as well?
Well, you can answer this two different ways. The first answer I would tell you is I think it's a great super regional match for A&M. I really do. I mean, because it could have been a lot worse. I mean, can you imagine if you were facing another team, like, for instance, you had another SEC team and another regional that could come out. Now you're having a super against an SEC foe that knows you and has like, no, thank you. That's never fun. I mean, the idea of facing Vanderbilt or LSU or whatever in a super is not my idea of fun. So A&M, was very fortunate in that, but they earned that, by the way, because being a 3 seed, they're going to play, a team that's really, they're going to be the team that was the 14 seed, in that region. So the 14th national seed is UCSB, and that's who they got. Now, that being said, UCSB is a very good ball club. They're excellent. They played Oregon earlier in the year and won 2 of 3. So Oregon really fought hard to the end to try to win the Pac-12. They just kind of fell short. In fact, Arizona and Oregon State just kind of raised above there at the end and kind of fought it out for the conference. But Oregon was right there, and I've seen Oregon play really great baseball. I've also seen them not play well at all. So you just never know what you're going to get with Oregon. I think they're a little bit all over the place, but I think they'd be a tough team to face because they're certainly talented. UCSB, I think, has the nod because they've already proven they've already beaten them 2 out of 3. They're getting to play at home. I do think that certainly helps. But I say all that because San Diego is over there too. And San Diego is a really good number 3 seed. And in fact, just to give everybody an understanding, San Diego won a series from Texas, won a series from Arizona this year, and Arizona is a host now. And so San Diego is nothing to be sloughed off about it as well. Yeah. In fact, they could be quite impressive. In fact, I would give San Diego, I would say San Diego is probably just as good a team as a Texas team as a 3 seed in the College Station Regional. I mean, they're certainly solid. I mean, we just talked about how good Texas can be. I mean, San Diego's right there with them. So would it surprise me at all, any of those 3 teams coming out of there? No, it wouldn't, because I think it's a pretty even matchup. I give UCSB a little bit of a advantage because they are getting to play at home. They earned playing at home. And so it's kind of hard always to go against that home team. But it would not shock me to see Oregon or San Diego shock everybody and come out of there. So that all being said, if you have one of those 3 teams coming out and say A&M were fortunate enough to get through the College Station Regional, they would play any of those 3 teams. A&M is going to be favored over all 3 of those. They certainly will, and they've earned that, and they should be. At the same time, each one of those teams definitely possesses the potential to give A&M fits. They could certainly win that Super. A&M is going to have to be on their game, but pick a regional, they wouldn't have to be. I mean, I think back to all the regionals that we've played in the last, say, decade. This sets up as well as any of them. I mean, we got lucky when Davidson kind of upset in the regional and we got to play our Super at home. I mean, that was kind of cool. And I do think that A&M that was the best break we ever caught, was be able to play Davidson at home, in the Supers. So that was awesome, but that's not the way it was laid out. It just happened Davidson played great and did it. Well, that could easily happen with San Diego or happen with Oregon and knock off UCSB. And they would be formidable coming in. But I do think that, the A&M team, the talent that they possess, would be able to handle any of those guys. So I do think that, all in all, the draw, other than, the typical, committee screwing around with the Texas and the A&M thing and all that, I think all in all, A&M got exactly what they deserved, and that was what a 3 national seed deserved. And so I think they've got a good path to get there. I don't want to say it's an easy path because it's not. But I do think it's a lot better than some of the past could have been, and that's always a good thing.
Time-honored tradition, right, of messing around with the brackets a little bit on that front. Wanted to get you out on this, and it's been, I know there's a lot of obviously excitement about Texas A&M baseball, but you look at what's kind of transpired around A&M athletics the past couple of weeks. I know you follow it very closely. Women's tennis wins a national championship.
It was awesome.
Golf.
Horrible coverage, but awesome thing.
A horrible coverage. That could have its own kind of podcast on its own. You look at women's golf. Adela Sanusek wins the individual title, the first women's golf individual title in program history, a huge accomplishment there. You look at softball, obviously get underseeded and then fall in 3 games to Texas. But just your thoughts on kind of the success some of the spring programs have been having, and obviously looking at women's golf, women's tennis, swimming and diving, track, and just everything that's been going on there. I know you follow it really closely.
I do, and I got to tell you, I've had a blast, and I've really enjoyed it. I watch a lot of this, what you might call secondary sports or whatever. Heck, I follow equestrian, so I mean, I enjoy all of it. But the tennis national championship was special. It really was, and those that didn't follow it didn't really know all the back behind the story. But to have Carson come back after her injury and pretty much given up and thought, okay, I'm done. To have her be able to come back and actually join the team right before the SEC tournament and all that, and really give A&M a boost, because even though A&M's ranking was a little bit low, you bring her back on the team, I can guarantee you our ranking would have been different if people knew she was going to be there. And so to have her, all of a sudden A&M became a national contender, and danged if they didn't go and win it. And their path to get there was amazing. And I mean, to go to North Carolina, who is the reigning national champion, and beat them on their court was incredible. And I mean, they did it, and they did well. And boy, once you saw that, you realize, okay, there's something good that can happen here. And to the credit of those ladies, they played their tails off. I mean, it was impressive. Facing Georgia, who had already beaten us multiple times in the year, was certainly formidable. But it kind of the old adage that it's really difficult to beat people twice. Well, to beat people three times, even more difficult. And so I had a really good feeling about A&M going to the national title. And we had weather issues at Oklahoma State. That coverage was abysmal. So it was trying to figure out, okay, who's winning and all that. But it was still such a great thing to watch. And truthfully, if I would have had time, I would have figured out a way to drive to Stillwater to be there, because I just think that is so cool. To win a national championship is just hard. I don't care what the sport. So that was awesome. Obviously, I'm a big golf guy, and so to see what Adela did was just amazing. She's been really great all year. What I love about her is she's worked her tail off to get there. She is the hardest worker on that team. In fact, she's the hardest worker on any of the golf teams. She, she's from France, but she was the first really signee that Jared had when he came to A&M. That was the first freshman that he had, and she came in and she was talented, but she needed to work on her game, and she has done that. And this year has been exceptional. She hadn't won anything, but she was very high in a lot of finishes and played really well. Was our best player at many times. We won a tournament here or there, and it was because of her, because she was really playing well. So to see her kind of culminate all that with a national championship at the NCAA championship itself was amazing. And I'm so happy for her. And, now she's been made an All-American, and I think that's really cool. And she's just got a great story. And I actually think this will be a trampoline effect for her senior year to really come out and be kind of one of the players to beat, going out there. I see her can just continue to get better and better and better. So that being said about her, I couldn't be more happy for her. I couldn't be more disappointed, though, in the performance of the team. That team was built to be in competition to win it all. Just sometimes your game just kind of goes south and you just can't get it back together. Jenny Park and Zoe Slaughter just did not play well this spring. I don't know why. They're both incredible players. I mean, Jenny has been outstanding since she's been at A&M. In fact, she was our stud for so long, right? And you just get in those funks sometimes. But she struggled, and then danged if Katja did the same thing. I mean, Katja, I think I'd have to go back and look at the national or the international rankings right now. Katja came to A&M as like the number 3 amateur player in the world as a freshman. I mean, this girl is really talented, and she's able to come play with her sister for a year, which I thought was really cool. I nicknamed them the Aggie Spanish Armada. I'm sorry. I mean, it was kind of cool. And they really played great for the most part. I mean, both of Blanca and Kata both played great. But I don't know what happened. Kata just during stroke play, she finished horrible on the final day of stroke play, as did Jenny and some of the others. But it was really unusual for Kata. She'd been playing great, but she got into a funk, and it carried over into match play. And anyway, one thing led to another, and we let UCLA knock us off. And I was absolutely shocked by that. I couldn't believe that happened. And I don't know if you watched it, but the Golf Channel people felt the same way. So
I did.
They overperformed the last 2 years. That we finished in the top 4 the last 2 years. And actually, I don't think they were expected to get there. This year, we were expected to get there, and it didn't happen. Sometimes that happens. So, a little disappointed for them. But all in all, what an amazing career. Blanca is going to leave, and Jenny's done, and Zoe is done. But they've had some really great success, and they've been great Aggies, and they represent A&M well. So I wish them the best. But I would also point out to you, we've got some really good players still on the bench and also coming in. And so I think Jared is going to reload with the quality of talent that we keep. I mean, to have really the 2 player. I mean, we're going to have the NCAA champion and one of the top 5 amateur players in the world still on our team. So that's a pretty good start. And so I expect to see some of these younger players that have been on the team kind of step it up. And we've got a couple of other recruits coming in. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jared didn't go out and snag a transfer person here or there to kind of reinforce the team too. So I think A&M women are going to be great. The men on the other side saw it coming. They just have not been able to hit on all cylinders. They played really well at times, but they were very inconsistent. And so kind of disappointed, a little disappointed, because that team is loaded with really good players, but they just couldn't put it together, and they really laid an egg at the NCAA. In fact, They didn't really play that well at our home course and regionals, but
Yeah.
really, or I'm sorry, the ladies played at our home course. They played at Stanford, but they just didn't play
That's
well
right.
and really had to fight to get through. And so you kind of saw it coming, but I was disappointed in their finish. That all being said, they're not that far away from being very competitive. So I look forward to seeing that. Now, getting over to softball, it was the biggest aberration I've seen this year in the NCAAs, and they do a lot of stupid stuff. But to make A&M a 16 seed was embarrassing. I don't know how that happens. A&M was somewhere between 8 and 12 ranked throughout towards the end of the season. They were hot. They were doing well. Yes, playing in the SEC is tough, but they were a very good team and did very well. They certainly weren't the 16th team in the country. The committee made them the 16th team because they wanted them to play Texas. And that just drives me crazy. We just talked about it in baseball. But, I mean, that wasn't fair to Texas, and it wasn't fair to A&M. And I think that the super really kind of showed that because both those teams deserve to be sitting in Oklahoma City right now playing it out. And unfortunately, A&M kind of got the raw end of the stick, and A&M could have easily won it. I mean, we could have won game 2 and been done. And it was a heck of a battle and ended up losing it. And then we battled to the last out, in the third game. So if you're not a softball fan, you should be. Tricia Ford is special. She's done amazing things in 2 years, and I think she's going to continue. Man, she's already landed a transfer out of San Diego that was the conference player of the year. She is a big stick. She's already got a couple of pitchers in mind. They're getting ready to land a couple more pitchers to reinforce, what we already have. And so I think you're going to see A&M reload, and they're going to be right back in there. And I actually think they're going to be better next year. But it's really exciting to see our softball team, play at a similar level to the baseball. I love the fact that Tricia Ford and Schloss are such good friends. I mean, they got to know each other, during the off-season kind of circuit. And they've become very good friends, and they really support each other well. And I really would point this out to everybody. I truly believe that Mike Elko has been such a stabilizing person in all the programs at A&M this spring. He went out of his way to engage. He's been at the baseball games. He's been at softball games. If you go to his press conferences, he leads every press conference off wishing the tennis team good luck. I mean, he's following – he's wishing the softball team good luck. He's at the baseball games. I mean, the guy really is doing it. And they have a group text, and they text all the time and talk all the time. And, say whatever you want to say about Jimbo. Jimbo would never have done that. And so I really think that Elko has been a big factor in that. And he's the football coach. But I give him a lot of credit to what he's doing. And you throw in what the track team is doing. Pat Henry continues to do it. We got 25 people going to the national championships. That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's a pretty good sized team to go out there. And we've got another one that kind of got screwed, and I'm hoping that the appeal is actually going to go through. I don't know if you saw it, but one of the A&M hurlers is one of the best hurlers in the country. And when he was in his race, a hurler that was behind him in the race fell and tripped him up, and he was unable to make his next jump, and ended up being basically not being able to finish. And so A&M appealed it, and the appeal went to the person that's supposed to be the ultimate authority, and they were going to give him a chance to run it again, timed, which would be very difficult to run on your own. But at least it was something. And somebody, and nobody seems to know, somebody stepped in and overruled that and did not allow it to happen. And so there's an appeal out there, and my hope is he will win that appeal and still get to go to nationals, because he is one of the top hurdlers in the country and deserves to be there. And it wasn't anything he did. It was something another athlete had done, and he deserves a chance. And so I saw Pat Henry do an interview, and he was quite upset about it, and hopefully that'll get changed. But, what he continues to do is exceptional. We've got great facilities now. A&M has spent the money to give him what he needed, and he's done a good job of kind of putting it together. Can they be better? Yes. I'd like to see us get back more competitive with Arkansas and LSU and kind of get there. And we're right there. And our teams I think we're 4 and 6 in the country as far as ranking, but those rankings don't mean anything at national championships. It's, it's all individual and all that. But we got 25 Aggies going to be out there in Oregon, and I look forward to seeing what they can do. So, you just, as we just talked through that, I mean, how cool is that? And I get that there's an awful lot of guys on our board. They're there for football. They don't care about anything else. It's all about football. Some of them kind of like basketball too, but it's all about football. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just not like that. I mean, I loved, you put an A&M logo on a maroon shirt competing for, whatever, I'm going to be there. I mean, hey, we even won the, what was the EA Sports event? We swept
EA Sports. Yep.
and hey, I'm all about it. And, our club hockey team kicked their tails too. And hey, anytime we can beat the Horns, we'll take it. But, the point of the matter is if you love A&M and a lot of us do, I just enjoy the success. I love seeing these college athletes, work their tails off to put themselves in a position to compete. And not only do they compete, but they're successful at that. And I didn't have anything to do with it, but I'm certainly there to pull for them and cheer them on. I think it's pretty awesome.
To your point, just on the Mike Elko front, I was kind of listening to Buzz Williams talk at the SEC meetings, and he kind of mentioned it as well, that he said, he watched softball over the weekend. He's been watching baseball, been at a couple of the baseball games. They're obviously very involved there, and just made me think of it when you said that about Mike Elko, and kind of said the same thing. He said, well, we got to figure out the tennis and the golf broadcast, and he's not wrong about that. Obviously the Golf Channel does a great job with the golf coverage, but said, got to figure out the tennis and the golf broadcast. But he's right there as well, kind of watching everything, and to have two of your leaders of the athletic department right there promoting everybody is a huge deal. We got some yard work happening behind me, so
no worries.
We're gonna go ahead.
Too much. I will tell you though about Buzz. I never forget. In 22, I'm in Omaha, and I'm actually walking on the concourse. I run into him. It was right before the Texas game, and I just thought that was the coolest thing that Buzz would come up and do that. And he was hilarious. He was up in one of the in the booths up there, but they introduced him. He waved to everybody and did everything. But I mean, Buzz is the real deal. He's all about trying to do it too. So Buzz is the same kind of guy as Elko when it comes to supporting all the other coaches. But the other coaches the same way. I mean, Schloss is at every football game that he can be at, and they all see the residual from all this. I mean, you talk about recruiting. I mean, can you imagine Mike Elko's got a recruit in town and you take him to Bluebell? I mean, my gosh. I mean, that's as good as taking him to Kyle Field. I mean, it really is, especially if it's a great game. So I mean, they're not stupid. They certainly see the other side of it. But what I love about it is I just love the fact that Buzz and Joni are friends, and they work together to help each other. And Mike Elko, though he can very rarely go to some of these games because he'll be coaching in season or whatever, when he's out of season, he has time. The man takes the time to go and be there and be a part of it, and he truly cares. I mean, he's all about. I mean, he loves baseball, but I mean, he was there for softball, and the tennis thing was the same thing. I mean, to start his press conference out by saying, "Hey, I want to make sure we wish the Aggie women's tennis team good luck now at nationals. Go bring it home and all that." I mean, that would have never happened with Jimbo. And I'm not trying to pick on Jimbo, but I mean, it's just the truth. That was not his focus. And I have to give credit to Elko because I think he has been that fiber. And I think Buzz was trying to do the same thing, but it's a lot more powerful even coming from the A&M football coach to basically integrate and support all these coaches doing great things. I mean, I got to tell you, the volleyball coach, it's the same way with him. They're currently touring. They're in Turkey, I think, right now. But they're turning around. He's got that team moving in the right direction too. And so there's an awful lot of really good programs that A&M has put together. I get some people just care about football, and that's fine if that's all you care about. I'm not one of those. I love football, man. I live for football. I hadn't missed a bowl game in forever. But at the end of the day, I also care about, how's Buzz doing? I also care about how the baseball team, obviously. But I just enjoy it because I think it's really cool because as A&M does well, the recognition nationally becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I don't know if we're ever going to be at a point where we're competing for the Learfield Cup. And I'm not sure we can. I think that's what they call it now. I can't even remember what they call that cup. But, that's a cup that's almost impossible for a team like A&M or a program like A&M to even win because a lot of those Olympic sports get a lot of points and all that. And we don't have all those Olympic sports like a Stanford does and all that. But the point of it is I just think it's really cool that anytime the maroon and white is on, I don't care what they're playing. If they're out there playing smash ball, we're going to be out there pulling for them. And it's a lot of fun to see Aggies be successful.
You talk about that baseball angle and you talk about the football side. Jonah Williams is the guy I reached out to you that when I spent some time down in Houston, I had some people down there on the recruiting side. For those that don't know him, really, really good baseball player, a really, really good football player. Debatable which one he is better at. He's really darn good at both of them. But, had some folks down in Houston mention, hey, Jim Schlossnagle and that A&M staff is kind of really meshing well right now with the football staff. And that's a big reason you've seen more buzz lately about them and on both fronts, because he's obviously trying to do both at the college level. So Sam, thank you so much for this breaking us all down. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks, and if this team goes to Omaha, we'll certainly have to have you on to do another breakdown of Omaha, and should they get there, and kind of where things look there. And but always a lot of fun catching up with you.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and I just want to say thanks to you and to everybody at 24/7. I enjoy being a small part of the team. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy the guys on the board. A lot of those guys mean a lot to me. I've had some challenges personally with my family, and they stepped up and were always there to help me. And that's just what Aggies have always done. And so I love that aspect of it. And I just hope everybody just really realizes that, journey in life is very short, and just take every moment to embrace your family, embrace your time. If you're a big A&M fan, man, just enjoy the journey. I mean, I got to tell you, the best part of this journey is the journey itself. Winning it all is awesome, but truthfully, it's the journey to get there that was even better. So enjoy the journey, because at some point in time, we're going to get there, and let's enjoy that when it gets there as well. But man, there's an awful lot of good between now and then. And so let's have fun with it.
Very well said. Very well said. And we hope, just extending the well wishes, obviously, if you're up in the DFW area, East Texas area, I know there's been some storms that have come through lately that have hit some areas hard. So if you're one of those people that's listened to this, wish you guys well. Hope you guys are doing okay, and in terms of damages and things like that. So just wanted to pass those well wishes along as well.
Somebody called me to check in, because we've had all kinds of challenges here. And I told them, if I start seeing animals lining up 2 by 2, I know we're in trouble. So far, so good.
Yep, absolutely. Same on our end. So we'll be in trouble on that front. So thanks again to everybody for kind of joining this. Be sure to like and share these videos if you enjoy them. Be sure to listen on Spotify, iTunes, whichever platform you kind of listen to, and we'll be back. Carter should be back from his honeymoon next week. We'll see if he chooses to stay an extra week. Congratulations to Carter, who got married this past weekend. So
both of you guys, I'm fully expecting both of you to be fully well trained.
I know within the last 2 months, both of us have gotten married. So settling into married life, right? And all going well on that front to this point. So we're all doing well. So congratulations again to Carter, and he and I will be back next week to kind of look ahead to summer ball as we roll into June. SEC Media Days are like just around the corner at this point. Football season's less than 100 days away. So plenty to discuss, and we will certainly be back to do all of that. Until then, enjoy the regionals, and we'll see you guys soon.